guys doing? Alex Shavazzi here from Shavazzi Outdoors, and today's video we are going to be covering a how-to for jigs. Now, jigs are very simple and very easy to use in theory. There's not much to it, but it's a matter of mastering the few techniques and being versatile with the jig depending on the weather, the clarity of the water, where you're fishing as far as boat, angling, and really just a bunch of little things. You're always having to find the fish and what they want and how they want it every day you go fishing. So this video may seem a little short. It may seem like we're not giving you much information, but trust me, the information that we are giving you is what you need to master to be able to catch these big fish. Now, we are starting in the winter time, so you're not going to see any monster fish, and the quantity might be a little lower than usual, but it's definitely a technique that'll catch you from 2 pounds all the way up into 16, 17 pound bass. I mean, it's a jig is something that will win tournaments for you, and it's something that we hope will win us some tournaments this coming up year in all the tournaments that we have. So first off, as you can tell in the next segment, my dad's going to be kind of going over a little bit of the techniques as far as the lifting and shaking, and then also the boat angle. Now, he doesn't do it as dramatic, the boat angle as dramatic as he would with, say, 2 people in the boat. He sits a little farther out, as you're going to see in the next clip, and he fan casts from left to right, sometimes a little closer to the bank and sometimes farther out in the deep. And the jig likes to be in around 15, 20, 25 foot of water. That's where you're going to catch most of your fish, and a lot of the quality fish will be in that area, but sometimes they're on the bank and sometimes they're even farther out in deeper water. Now, when there's 2 people on the boat, you're really going to want to hug the boat into the bank. That way the person in the front that's doing the trolling motor can cast straight ahead and can fan about another 15 degrees to the right or to the left, depending on which side the bank is, and then the person behind can be right over the shoulder and can cast over the shoulder farther out into the deep. Now, if you sit off the bank a little bit, say like 10 feet, 15 feet off the bank, usually the back person can cast down parallel with the bank on the left shoulder, or say the bank's on the right, or the bank's on the left side, I can cast in the back across his left shoulder and get that 10 foot of water, and he can cast to the right, the fan cast, and get all the water that's out in the deeper area. So hope you guys enjoy this, and we'll go over a little bit more.
Right now we're sitting in about 43 foot of water, nothing on it, pretty plain. What we're going to do is going to work this bank here, and we're going to go and fish inside out and go towards those trees and see if there's anything out sitting out a little further. Now, this is something that a lot of guys won't show you, and it's just a matter of just getting out and doing it. Everybody has their way of fishing, and they all have their way of catching fish, but it helps if somebody shows you a little bit, you know, of how to, you know, little shake, little lifting. Right now I'm just going to put a twin tail trailer on, try that, and then I'll switch over to different stuff. But just like this, no big deal. Just slide it on. Make sure the tail's even. When you come out, that hook should be straight even with your tail. No big deal. You guys with your fancy boats and don't want to get up against the bank, or you have your power poles, this is when you use them. This is something that the nice boats don't want to get scratched up, don't want to get too close to the bank. You know, you use your power pole, get yourself in line with where you want. It's real simple. Shake it a couple times, let it drop back down. Keep a little slack line. Don't keep your line tight. Whatever you do, don't keep it tight, because you're going to miss so many fish. What they're going to do is they're going to come up and they're going to follow this thing, and then if you leave it sitting down on the bottom, they're going to literally grab it off the bottom and you'll see it pop. On the way down, keep a little loose line, just enough to watch it and watch it hit bottom, or sometimes a fish. But just a little shake and keep your rod tip up. One thing I noticed, you notice this rod tip's way up in the air. Everybody thinks, oh, you're going to lose set ties, you know, where you can, you know, can't set. But what you're going to do is you're going to let them eat it, and then you're going to go ahead and reel down and catch up to them. So right now, being winter time, they probably are back in the creek channels or sitting off these deep islands. Sometimes I'll shake it twice, sometimes I'll shake it 3 times. The thing about it is it's a matter of how long you can endure letting it sit. Sometimes 3 seconds, sometimes 5, sometimes just barely. And it all depends on how fast they're taking it off the bottom. Threw out there by that tree. Let it drop down. It's probably only in about 25 foot of water. You can count if you want. Every second you count is a foot down. But it's a little deeper right there. Got a little drop off. Little shake. Bring it back down. Reel up your slack. Shake. Drop it back down. And all you're waiting for is sometimes you'll see that tick. Now, if they don't get on this, I'm going to change it up, and I'm going to just lift and drop. Lift and drop. And they'll pick it up as you're swimming it away. And sometimes that's the way they want it. I mean, one thing about jig fishing, that's the thing about it. The art of it is changing it up and finding out what works best that day. I mean, every day is a different ball game. I mean, sometimes they want it up there in the shallow water or even in wintertime, but most of the time, you know, I'm fishing either parallel to the 20 to 30 mark, or I'm fishing inside out, where I'll take and put the boat on the bank and do it the opposite way. I mean, sometimes it just depends on the fish. So we're going to test it out and see what we get.
Another thing that's really important to notice is how we are holding the rod. As you can tell, after the cast is made, we let the jig sink to the bottom, and you'll notice that the rod tip is completely up. Now what this does is allow for a nice loop in your line with the slack line, where if you're paying attention to the line and a fish hits it, you'll see the line just slightly pop up in the air. Now that you might not feel the bite, you might not feel anything, but that is one key indication that a fish is there. And as you try this technique more and more, you'll get better at realizing when a fish is on. So an important thing is always look at the line. If you see any kind of jump, reel in as fast as you can and set the hook. Even if he's not there, it doesn't hurt anything. And practice makes perfect.
Sure felt weird. That's why he was on the whole time. Little guy. But yeah, he bit that. And he had that in his mouth. I gotta get 5 fish to eat. Might as well go ahead and start now. That one's on the bank. When you know they're eating jigs. All the way down.
Okay, so as you guys can tell, every time he catches a fish or goes through his own segment, I'm kind of giving you a recap just so you can understand it clearly and really know what you saw. On these last two fish, you'll notice that he didn't see the line jump. Now, not every time you're going to see the line jump, not every time you're going to feel a tick, but an important rule of thumb for jig fishing is before you go to shake, you lift up just barely. Now, a very solid pressure could mean that you're on a log, could mean that you're on a rock, or it means that you're on a fish. Now, as you kind of hone the technique, you'll realize within the first inch or two of lifting whether it's a rock or a log. But if you feel like this jelly, we always like to explain it as a jelly kind of feeling where you're lifting up and there's a little bit of give, it comes down to those, you don't know if it's a fish or if it's a tree, if it's kind of giving a little bit. So reel down as fast as you can, especially with these spotted bass. They run like a bandit, and you're really going to want to get a higher ratio rod and reel setup, especially for the spotted bass. But when that happens, like he did in the clip, reel down as fast as you can. When you start feeling the weight of the rod, that's when you're going to go ahead and set the hook, guys, and that should help you out a little bit as far as not feeling a tick or seeing the line jump. Just reel.
And then, nice.
Yeah. Nope. Little. Look at that. I felt him hit that. I can't believe that.
Believe it. Oh, that's a spot. Up shallow.
Yeah.
Shallow low. We need the large now. You fish a lot of worms and sinkos. How about spider grubs?
Now remember, when you're shaking it, you're not shaking it with a tight line. See how that loop is? I'm just lifting just a little bit, then reel back down. But I'm not taking and lifting that jig up that far. The further you lift it up, oh, there was a fish. The worse it's going to be. You literally don't want to lift it up too much. But when you're fishing inside out like this, you have to pop it and bring it up, or you're going to snag up. You'll be snagged up all day long. So when you start snagging up, just make sure that you remember to pop it. Yeah, you can see that point coming out like that. It must just come out current because it's fairly shallow. What I'm hoping for is some cover out there, some rocks, some trees, something that these fish are gonna structure, some kind of structure out there that's gonna hold them. And if you get spotted bass, usually you get 2 or 3 of them in one spot. So yep, there he is. He's not very big, but it just comes right out. trout. I got me a big old trout. Jiminy Christmas. Hit a jig. Oh my gosh. Big old trout. Oh my God. Gave me Christmas. The size of that thing. All right.
Now, the best tip I can possibly give you guys on this video is take what you can get and all these little helpful tips from this jig video, but also as you're watching our videos that we post up throughout the year through the tournaments, really watch from the outside camera angle and even from the chesty or the head. Watch how we maneuver the rod tip, watch how we cast, where our placement is, where the timing is. It all matters, especially when the fishing is a little hard. Sometimes you might want to just lift the jig off the bottom and not shake, and other times you want to shake it. Other times it's both in the same cast. It's really a game of trying to figure out the fish, because the fish might be on the bite but won't bite your jig if you're not using the correct technique for that time. So don't get frustrated or don't think that your jig's not working. A lot of times you need to switch up the technique from what you would say like a swim jig over a jig that you're going to want to shake a little bit. So really work with it, give it a proper amount of time, and learn the techniques. And again, watch the videos, watch my dad or watch me when I'm fishing, and don't just watch with a dead mind, but really open up your mind and try to learn from the techniques, how much we're lifting up, all that stuff. It really does matter. My dad can go out there and catch 20 fish and I'll only catch 5. Even though we're using the same jig, it's because he's really refined his technique, whereas I'm still trying to learn and pick up what he's showing me.